This is the Steele Report.
This week on the Steele Report, the latest in our Democratic presidential candidate interviews. Our guest this week, Tom Steyer, the billionaire activist and philanthropist. Our program begins right now.
Now from KWWL, this is the Steele Report.
Right now on the Steele Report, I want to welcome to the set our latest presidential candidate on the Democratic side, Tom Steyer. Really, he needs no introduction because his commercials have been running constantly on our station here for quite some time now. Let me introduce him to you right now. He's 62 years old. He was born in New York City, now resides in the San Francisco area. He's a graduate of Yale, MBA from Stanford University. And Mr. Steyer, of course, is well known across the country and really in his home state of California as a philanthropist, activist, and environmentalist, the founder and former managing partner of Farrell & Capital. That's a multi-billion-dollar investment company, a hedge fund firm with assets under management of more than, I believe, last check, more than $30 billion. He also co-founded, along with his wife, Kat Taylor, One California Bank, which is now Beneficial State Bank, headquartered in Oakland. He's a former Stanford Board of Trustee member, and you and your wife have four grown children. So I welcome you, Tom, to the program. And I want to start out by asking you this question here. I've read several publications which describe you as a billionaire liberal activist. Is that a fair characterization of Tom Steyer?
Well, when I think about myself, I think about somebody who has spent a decade putting together coalitions of American citizens to take on corporate power. And I'm running for president basically to try and break the corporation's ownership of our national government. So when you say a liberal activist, I mean, I definitely have 10 years of success of beating corporations, and I have 10 years of building one of the largest grassroots organizations in the United States, which is Next Gen America, which is on 41 campuses in Iowa, and in 2018 did the largest youth voter mobilization in American history.
When you started out here a couple of years ago, this need to impeach was really, we got a lot of calls, controversial calls, saying, why are you having him on? Some people saying, yes, get the guy on every day. I mean, it really created a lot of stir. And now the impeachment inquiry has moved far beyond what you kind of started this talk. You were kind of ahead of the curve on that one a little bit. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because some people may know that my dad was a lawyer, but he stopped his law career to go in the Navy in World War II, and he ended up prosecuting the Nazis at Nuremberg. And so when I started Need to Impeach, which was 2 years ago, I was really thinking about him because he always said, when something is really wrong at the heart of your society, at the very center of your government, you should be fighting it every day so it doesn't take over. So Need to Impeach 2 years ago was saying, and more than 8 million people signed that petition, so it was really their voice that counted, not mine, was to say, America has to do the right thing. This isn't about partisanship. This is straight up patriotism. And it was the American people insisting that Washington get to where it is now, which is to say, it's a matter of right and wrong. And by the way, what happens to the president is going to be determined by the voice and the will of the American people, not by what happens in DC, but what we all think, what the people of Iowa decide is right and wrong.
Now, you've said on your commercials that Donald Trump is a fraud and a failure. You told the Sacramento Bee back in June of 2018 that removing him from office should be the nation's top priority. Have you wavered from that at all, even though you're campaigning for president?
Look, running for president is a different question. Because what people want to hear from a presidential candidate, and what is important to say is, what does the future mean for me and my family? How is the United States going to change? What are you going to do to make our lives better? And that's what I want to talk about, and that's what I am talking about. But what I was saying is, the United States, the job of this country was to get rid of the most corrupt president and to stand up for democracy. Look, all of this, my run for presidency, Need to Impeach, Next Gen America, my activism taking on these corporations has always been about a belief that the wisdom in America is with the American people. That's where the bravery is, that's where the compassion is. The more democracy, the better. The less control from Washington, D.C., the better. The more the human beings around the country get their voice heard, the happier and more confident I am.
Now, there was a time when you came to Iowa to announce that you would not run for president. Then you changed your mind. You said something like this: the reason I changed my mind was I felt that there is no one talking about the basic point in American politics. Now you're back here. You've actually improved in the polls to a significant point that you qualify for the next debate too. You're just coming off your performance in the last debate where you got actually a pretty good applause there when you said everyone on the stage was better than the current president. Yeah.
Look, I think the biggest point about American politics that everybody basically knows is corporations have bought this government. You know, the reason I'm running is I watched those early debates and I thought everyone's talking about which healthcare policy, which Green New Deal, which education policy, which gun policy, but they weren't talking about the basic fact, which is none of those can be enacted until we beat these corporations. These are not new problems and they're not new solutions. The reasons we haven't dealt with the basic problems, the reason our government is failing is corporations like it just the way it is. If we pay twice as much as healthcare as any other people in the world, that's great for the corporations. If we don't have any real answer at the federal level to the climate crisis, that's great for the oil and gas companies. So in fact, until the American people get back power to the people, government of, by, and for the people, we're not going to solve any of these. And that's what I wanted to say to the American people is job number one is to get back our government.
One of the points that Senator Booker made near the end of the debate was, he said basically Democrats need to stop tearing each other down to have any chance of defeating President Trump. Do you feel that way?
Listen, I think that President Trump is going to run on the economy. I think if he's still in office, which I think is very much of an open question if he hasn't been removed, he's going to say basically, I know that in many ways I'm a hateful person and I've, committed some crimes and done some bad things, but I'm good for the economy. Look, I spent 30 years in the private sector. I built a business from scratch into a multi-billion-dollar international business. I think two things. I can expose him as a fraud and failure that he is as a businessman, and I can expose his fraud and failure as a steward of the American economy. The tax plan he pushed was an attack on every working American, the biggest giveaway ever to rich people and corporations. And his trade war, I am in Iowa. His trade war is hurting working people, hurting businesses, and it's killing farmers. I would end the trade war on day one.
Let me ask you a simple farm question. So if let's say you're an Iowa corn producer today, you're producing a bushel of corn. Do you know the break-even price on that?
I don't. But what I do know is...
I appreciate your honesty.
I don't, but what I do know is this, and I actually raise cattle, I raise pigs, and I raise chickens. So actually, I run my own ranch. What I know in terms of corn is this. For Iowa corn farmers to succeed, they need to end the trade war, and we need to get rid of these waivers to these oil refineries. Ethanol is a critical thing. It actually works. It is that is something that's critical. So what I know is they need the ability to sell their product around the world, and they need the ability to sell their product in the United States of America, and I would make sure that both of those things happen.
You mentioned ethanol. A quote from 2010, you can tell me if this is wrong or not. I saw in the paper that Al Gore, you said I saw in the paper the other day that Al Gore was saying that maybe he shouldn't have been for ethanol. It's kind of like, duh. Did you ever take out your calculator on that one? At that point, that sounds like you weren't really in favor of ethanol. Have you changed your position on that?
Actually, what's happened is ethanol's gotten better.
Okay.
If you actually look and take out your calculator, you see that now ethanol really works. And in fact, it is something, and it's also the future. We need biofuels. And so I think what's happened is originally, it was true that when it first came in, it wasn't nearly as productive, but I actually do follow the numbers. And I have done the research, and I know that it actually is effective.
So the RFS and the refinery waivers, that is something that the president put into place. It kind of like it went behind the back of people who were supporting ethanol because that cut production. So where do you stand on ethanol production is it good for Iowa? Is it good for Iowa farmers? Is it good for the nation? And there's a lot of people that say it is not.
I know that, and I disagree with them. I know it's good for Iowa corn producers. You don't have to be smart to know that. Corn farmers. I've been to some of those farms. I've talked to those people. I also know it's good for the nation. Look, I'm the person in this race who's by far the biggest advocate for solving the climate crisis. I've said I declared an emergency on day one. I've said I'd use the emergency powers of the presidency. I said I'd make it the #1 part of my foreign policy. I know we have to deal with it. I also know we can deal with it. And Iowa is going to be a huge part of this. It's not just ethanol. Iowa's 42% wind energy. If you go around this country and you want to look at a state that is going to be at the forefront of solving the climate crisis, Iowa is right there.
We'll continue our interview with Democratic presidential candidate Tom Steyer in just a moment. Welcome back. Let's continue our interview right now with Democratic presidential candidate Tom Steyer. Your view is Medicare for all who want it. So there's a big difference between Medicare for all and Medicare for all who want it. So expand on that a little bit.
Well, the way that this has been described in these debates is basically a breakdown between Medicare for all, where everybody is in the public system and nobody has private health care, and one where you offer the Medicare basically as a public option for everyone who wants it, and it's a choice. Everyone has to participate in the system. Healthcare is a right for every American. You use the buying power of the federal government to drive down costs. You use it to go after, to basically provide the most choice, but you don't insist that the 160 million Americans who get their health care through their employment stop doing that by law. And I'm someone who believes, let's use the public option to drive down costs. Let's make it the cheapest and most attractive option so those 160 million people choose it. But I don't believe in saying to 160 million Americans who've negotiated for their health care through their employment, I know better than you do about your health. I know better than you do about your family. I know better than you do about your life. You will do it my way or you will be breaking the law and we will punish you. That's not very American to me.
The wall and immigration and the Dreamer, the path to citizenship. Just give us a brief, your overview of how that should all play out, because it's obviously as controversial now as ever. You know.
Look, I think when people talk about immigration, they're talking about several things. I think that Mr. Trump has used it as a race question. As I like to say, he's not talking about a wall at the Canadian border. So in fact, he's using this at race, and in fact, the way that he's handled people, families, kids seeking asylum is against international law. It's also against the law of humanity. That is absolutely something I think everybody in America realized. He was using terror. He was torturing children in our name. That would stop day one. The second question is, we have over 10 million people living in the United States. Average time here, 15 years. We don't have any comprehensive immigration reform. They don't have documentation. They have no official status. They have no route to citizenship. That makes no sense. We haven't had comprehensive immigration reform for 35 years since Ronald Reagan did. So am I in favor of the Dreamers? Absolutely, I'm in favor of the Dreamers. I think that President Obama was absolutely right. Can we have control of our borders and be a decent, compassionate country? Yes. Do we need immigrants? Absolutely. I mean, people love to say we're a country of immigrants, and of course we are. But more than that, going forward, we need the energy and of new immigrants. The question is, why don't we have a policy and a mission of what we're trying to accomplish in terms of immigration? Instead of reacting, this president is using it as racism, pure and simple. He's trying to absolutely vilify people, started it before the first day he ran for president, talking about Mexicans as rapists and murderers. He's using this as a political football, when in fact we should be dealing with this in a sensible way, in a humane way, knowing that we control our borders, it's our country, we need immigrants, let's be fair about it and let's decide our mission together.
What do you say to an average Iowan who says, I really can't identify with a billionaire. I'm struggling paycheck to paycheck. How do you address that? And you did start Farrell and Capital with just $15 million and grew it to something almost $40 billion, I believe I read correctly. And you're willing to spend $100 million of your own money in this campaign. What do you tell Iowans that, how do you identify with them? How can they identify with you?
I say two things. One is, first of all, you have to know who my family is. My mom was from Minneapolis, Minnesota. She went to New York. She ended up being a school teacher, and she taught in the Brooklyn House of Detention. My uncle was a professor at the University of Iowa in Iowa City for 40 or 50 years. My grandfather on that side was a professor at the University of Minnesota. My father was the first generation in his family to go to college. My grandfather on that side was a plumber. My parents were in the Depression, World War II generation, and they taught us, America's given so much to you, you make sure you give at least that much back. So when I think about myself, I did build a big business. My wife and I took the giving pledge to give the bulk of our money away to good causes while we're alive. I walked away from my business so I could organize people to fight what I thought of as unjust and unchecked corporate power. So the question, if you believe what I believe, that we have a broken government in Washington, D.C., then the question that I ask the people of Iowa and the people of America to answer is this. If that's the problem, then who are you going to trust to actually break that corporate stranglehold on our government? Is it going to be someone who's done it successfully from the outside for 10 years, which I have? Or are you going to think it's going to come from inside the Beltway, that people who have been there for decades are really going to be the people who are going to reform Washington? Look, I've talked about term limits for every congressperson and senator. No one else in this race will even say it's a bad idea. They won't even talk about it. I've talked about a national referendum where the American people get to vote directly to pass laws that Congress won't address. No one will even talk about that. What I'm talking about is actually changing the structure of Washington and doing what I've been doing for 10 years, trying to get power back to the people of the United States. That's who I trust. There's no one else who will even talk about those concepts. There's no one else who's built grassroots organizations. And I don't believe, look, this morning I was talking to somebody and they told me that when I talked about a national referendum, that all of the professors were outraged. And I said, sure they are. They have PhDs in poli-sci. They don't actually believe Americans know anything. They believe that you need a PhD in poli-sci. I believe in the American people. I actually believe in democracy, that together we're smarter than anybody in Washington, D.C. That's what I believe in.
So your net worth is estimated at about $1.6 billion. Am I in that ballpark? So this will be the second interview that I've done with a billionaire. The other one, you might dispute that he's even a billionaire, and I'm talking about Donald Trump has been on this program before. So when you look at Donald Trump and the way he approaches business and the way you approach business, and I believe you said at one point, talking about Farrell and Capital when you're the managing, there are a couple of things that could bring it down. One of them was being dishonest with your investors and the people. Expand on that a little bit. What about
So actually, this is a great question, Ron. Look, my idea in business was the way that you build a good business is by being trustworthy and consistent and working with the same people together in a fair way. And I always said, that's the only way to work. I'd rather work together with people for decades and have us agree and be decent together than have one killer deal. Look, Donald Trump got sued 2,500 times for not paying his bills. If you do the math, that's getting sued once a week for 50 years because you didn't pay your bills. That's really hard to do. But if you look at how he operates as president, and you think particularly about his foreign policy, it makes total sense. His foreign policy, he calls it America First. America First of all, was the name of a pro-Nazi organization in the late 30s. Can't be a coincidence. But second of all, we have no allies. No one trusts us, we trust no one. We have no values. We're not standing for anything, we're just trying to get more. And we have no real process. You know, he doesn't even listen to anybody else, he decides things on a whim. If you think about how you create value in a business, or as a president, or as a country, you do it by deciding what your mission is and having open values, having partners who you're open and trustworthy with, and building value over time in a transparent and decent way. That's what the United States traditionally has done. That's what we did in World War II. That's what we did in the Cold War. That's really what President Obama was doing with the Paris Accord on climate. That's what he was doing with our partners to control the Iranian development of nuclear weapons. A values-driven country that people trust, who works in coalition with allies who share the same values, creating a better world for us and for everybody else together.
All right, before we wrap things up, I have to ask you, my co-anchor Abby wanted me to ask you about the belt. You're wearing it today, we'll show it in the commercial, but what's the relevance of the belt that you wear at Iowa out on the farm, or maybe you wear it all the time? So tell us about the belt.
So I wear a belt every day, which is a beaded belt from Kenya. And I wear it partly because I think it's very pretty, but I also wear it because I went over to Kenya to look at some schools that some friends of mine were supporting to educate girls specifically. Because in a lot of parts of the world, including in Africa, women or young girls don't get educated nearly as long or as seriously as boys. And what we find out is when girls get educated, everything gets better. You know, it really is one of those magic formulas. And so I wear this belt to remind myself that doing simple, decent things sometimes can change the world in a really positive fashion. And honestly, the education of girls is something that can save the world.
I want to ask you one question before we go. I know you're under a tight schedule here, but let's say that someone else wins the Democratic nomination. Will you support them, or will you stay in this race and run as a third-party candidate?
So, Ron, I'm glad you asked me that because it gives me a chance to clarify it. Under no circumstances would I ever run as a third-party candidate.
Okay.
I would 100%. If I'm not the nominee, I will support any Democrat who is the nominee 100%. We're still running Next Gen America, our grassroots operation. We're still running For Our Future, our door-knocking operation with national labor unions as our partner. We're still running the Need to Impeach campaign. Under no circumstances whatsoever would I not support the Democratic candidate.
All right, thank you for the answers. I really appreciate it. Tom Steyer, thanks very much for stopping by the KWWL studios. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
And
it's a treat.
We're going to continue the Steele Report right here on KWWL. We're also online on KWWL.com. We'll come back here in just a moment.